And I keep seeing these articles popping up ever since GTA announced that there's going to be a female character in the next game. You get like all these journalists going like, "Oh, woman! Oh, you guys, it's a woman! Ah, that's so cool! It's a woman!" It's like, do you not see them in real life or some shit? Like, what? Why is this such a major achievement that you're pretending? It's almost like you're that type of pervert that puts an apartment to rent, and then it's like, "Oh, a woman contacted me and she wants to move in. Oh, I'm so lucky." It's like, dude, it's bizarre. It's bewildering. Like, you know there are other games out there, right? Like, if you like the virtual titty, like, go on Pornhub and watch some hentai like normal people. Like, what is wrong with you? And not to mention, like, they're not going to appreciate the fact that GTA stars a woman. Do you know why? Because the game takes place on the streets. Now, I don't think these journalists lived on the streets. They don't seem to me like they have the behavior of someone that grew up in that environment. But I'll tell you what happens on the streets, okay? If you're a guy, you get beaten up on a daily basis. If you're a woman, you get pushed into prostitution, right? This is the type of game that you decided needs a female character. I don't think you're going to be happy with the results. I genuinely do not think you're going to be happy. Like, this game, GTA, is a game that's so messed up when it comes to depicting its lore that there are no elderly or children in the game. Like, do you understand this? Like, when you go and you drive around Santa Fe, you do not see any kids as you're looking left to right. Why do you think that is? Like, can you imagine the controversy and how people would freak out if that was the case? I mean, hell, Anita Sarkeesian, hallowed be her name, was complaining that there are women in the game, which people who have the freedom to do whatever they want in a sandbox game would drive their car over them. And they didn't like that. I mean, no, seriously, it's just like so bizarre. Because you're taking away something from a group of people that are connected to the streets. People like me who grew up in a dangerous neighborhood. But you know what? It's how I grew up with. It's like I understand the mentality. And when I get to play a game like GTA, makes me smile. And if you want to sanitize it, if you want to take away that aspect, you're taking something away from me. And I'm willing to bet that if you actually poll or survey the community and you ask them like, hey, do you think these things should be taken away? They'd probably say no. But unfortunately, we have the journalist gatekeeper that gets to speak on behalf of the community without doing surveys or polls. I mean, look here, all right? Like, even in this article, they're basically saying that Grand Theft Auto hasn't had the best history with female representation in their previous title. Man, shut the hell up. You know, you look at The Last of Us, which is a game that they're all clapping right now. Like, even now, a journalist is clapping over The Last of Us. And you look at Ellie and Abby. Be honest and tell me, how many women from your circle of friends remind you of Ellie or Abby? Because maybe it is if you're in California. But here from Romania, and I'm not exaggerating, I can't tell you a single girl that behaves like Ellie or Abby or has even remotely the same personality as they do. They're not real people. They're not behaving like real people. And because of that, it destroys immersion. Now, I can tell you a lot of people from Rockstar's games, like, for example, in the previous one, Red Dead Redemption, the drunken old man that's actually very wise and has a lot of things to say and always complains about his back. I knew a person like that in real life. And when that happens, it creates immersion. Because I'm like, oh yeah, you know, like, this is the type of person that you can meet in real life. You know, you look at what video game characters look like in previous Rockstar titles, like this lady over here. And this is what journalists hate. They ask, at med school, I had a lot of girls that look like this. I didn't have a single colleague that looked like Abby. Not a single one, but I can tell you numerous colleagues that look like this. Because I went at the beach with my classmates. I went into various camps and excursions, and I saw the ladies in swimming suits and whatnot, and they have pictures on Facebook. Like, this is not unrealistic. Do you know what this is actually? It's hard work. That's what it is. Because again, I know it's shocking for a video game journalist, but if you do speak with women, if you do talk with girls, they tell you that looking like this is very difficult. They need to go to the gym. They need to have a strict diet. They need to put on beauty products. They need to have like a special clamp that pulls the hair out of their asshole so that when they're wearing this lingerie, it doesn't show, right? It's hard work. The hell does a journalist know about hard work? They're writing video game articles for a living. I mean, they hate hard work. They hate when other people are more successful than them. So yeah, like they don't like this. They're like, give me Abby, because that's definitely something achievable. That I know a lot of girls that have her personality and her looks. Yeah. So that's the main take that I have from this. There's two paths from here. Number one, the game manages to actually stay true to its roots and does try to present the streets the way they are, which will cause the video game journalists to be absolutely livid. I mean, they're going to pop a gasket, which is kind of funny because this is what GTA used to do. They used to push against journalists and against people that were criticizing the video gaming industry from a dishonest point of view. It's like, oh, GTA is a murder simulator, like that type of people. The other option is that they're going to do what the journalists want at the expense of the world building that they're trying to create. At which case, they're going to upset the consumer and they're going to get the go woke, go broke mentality. Regardless of what they do, usually games sell based on their previous titles. And since Red Dead was a great game, even if the new GTA would be an absolute failure, people will still buy it. But it will affect the sales of what happens after GTA 6. So that's my opinion on it. Hopefully, they will manage to find a really good and compelling story, because that's what it matters at the end of the day, is the story and the gameplay. And it's going to be focused around a female character that's going to act like a woman that we all know from real life, like a friend of ours or a colleague or a boss or something like that. But my opinion is that it's very difficult to do if you're trying to portray the streets. If you are trying to portray the corporate environment, then yeah, you can have a strong female character just fine. If you're going with some fantasy Tomb Raider type of stuff, yeah, you can have Lara Croft. And by the way, Lara Croft from the first game, that's how you actually portray a woman. She was scared, she was terrified on being alone on that island, but because her friends were there and she wanted to rescue them, she managed to sum up the courage and made for a very adventurous and interesting game. Comparing that with the last Tomb Raider that came out, which is completely forgettable and most people don't even care about the story or even know what the hell happened there, and you get to see the difference on what happens when the game developers cater to the journalist versus what happens when they actually try to create something that they find cool and they create a relatable character. People cared about Tomb Raider for Lara Croft in the first game because she was scared. That the player wanted to see her through the story because they could relate to her as a human being. Because if I was on that island, I would be scared shitless as well. But if you're creating something that's like, okay, so she's on this island and she's got like these people hunting for her and she doesn't show any sign of fear, she's completely in control of the situation, that's just like boring. It's like there's no journey there. It's like she's already matured or whatnot. But anyway, the thing that really annoys me is that you see journalists more concerned about trivial stuff like this that the community doesn't care about. And the reason the community doesn't care about is that there's no mods around it. Like, if people really wanted a female character in GTA, they would just mod her in. Like, you can do that. But there's no demand. People just don't care. They want story, gameplay. So the journalists are focusing on this nonsense rather than focusing on stuff like loot boxes, predatory transactions, holding developers to account when they're displacing the consumer or releasing a broken product. You rarely hear that. Why? Because the journalists and the corporations have a symbiotic relationship. Most journalists nowadays are not there for the community. They're there to be corporate shills. It's almost like the corporation has hired them on their marketing team. That's what it's like. And they get wined and dined, and they get premium access, and they get the games for free so they can get more clicks. That's what it's about. So they can't say negative things about the game. Instead, they go like, oh, why doesn't Assassin's Creed have a new female character? Because for the company, it's very easy to fix that. The company just releases a new game later on with a female character, gets all the publicity for free from the journalists. No big deal. But if the journalists would complain about loot boxes, well, that's how the company monetizes things. They don't want to remove that. They don't want to take it away. They don't want a journalist to complain about the fact that there's like 25 new DLCs for a game and each of them costs $10. Oh my God. Like, that would actually hurt the company. But it would improve the experience for the consumer. So they need to create this bullshit that no one cares about. That's what they're doing. And they outright say it sometimes. I mean, look, recently, during the pandemic, and when the economy is taking a hit, a lot of game developers decided that the price for their PlayStation 5 games is going to be $70. What do journalists write? Oh yeah, articles like new games is $70 and customers will be happy to pay for it. Instead of like advocating, it's like, no, customers are not happy to pay for it because customers on PlayStation also pay money for the PlayStation Network so they can have the option to play multiplayer. Yeah, no one is happy. The question should have been, it's like, okay, you're making him $70. What are you offering in return? That's what a real journalist would be like. Okay, so on the PC, the game is $60. On the PS5 is 70. What does the PS5 have that the PC doesn't? Okay, make your case, developer. We're not going to have these conversations anymore because, again, like most of these journalists are in the pocket of the corporations. And if you're a journalist from another publication like CBR and you would actually bring these things up, you'd be attacked by the other journalists from Kotaku and Polygon on Reset Era. They don't do it in public. They do it behind closed doors. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the comment section.